Jaws out, or with the fact that Brooklyn now has 5 players injured, do you think they will stay in the top 6 in the East?
I mean, considering that the social issues Ja is going through, I think.
I mean, the police in Colorado said he's not guilty. Like they're not going to pursue charges.
Oh man, that means the NBA is going to be harassed by the woke mob to pass their own judgment. Because when the law doesn't come through for the woke mob, then the NFL or the NBA, they have to play police. No, I think that Memphis has shown that they can't play without Ja, that they are a shell of a team. So let's just say that Ja is out as they deliberate his uh his justice another 2 weeks. Give him an ankle sprain equivalent.
Okay, I mean,
The
I
Phoenix
will.
Suns are going to pass him up.
I'm going to caveat what you're saying. At the time of recording on Thursday, March 9th at 5 o'clock Pacific time, welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Ballers, by the way. The Memphis Grizzlies are playing against the Golden State Warriors in the first quarter. Memphis is up 43-26.
Mm-hmm.
So Dylan Brooks is clearly very upset at Draymond Green right now.
Let me ask something, because again, I'm about to go to the mountains. I'm about to play my own game. It's so, of course, the Warriors are the Warriors are on the road. The Warriors have a historically abysmal road record when compared to their overarching record. 34-32, and then 7-25 on the road. It's like two different teams with them being depending on where they're playing. You saw how they played against the Lakers. The Lakers were up against them 20 points in the first quarter. I was sending you messages. I'm like, okay, here's how the Lakers are getting to the playoffs, 6 seed. Then the Warriors come back. So only to lose by a few points at the end. So I don't want to count this one as like, oh yeah, the Grizzlies are legit because they're beating the bad Warriors, the bad away team Warriors. But I will say, Brooklyn having all these players out, you have 5 players that are, always talk about their depth, but there's, that's their strength is the fact that they have a bunch of players that can just be next man up. With 5 of them out, you would hope that, Spencer Dinwiddie, Royce O'Neal, Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton, who else is left? Can they function with Seth Curry, Joe Harris, Mikal Bridges on the wing? I don't think so. Is Cam Thomas hurt or not?
Yeah.
Cam Johnson.
Cam Thomas did not play.
Cam Thomas didn't even play.
Yeah, he's got a couple of DNPs right now. Like that's the whole conversation around him too.
That team. If they can win, then that coach Jacques Vaughn, it was a mistake for him to ever be a borderline head coach. That means that the NBA was blackballing him for some unknown reason, which I couldn't even imagine. If he can make this team work with all these injuries and still be functional, then that's a head coach you want to hold on to. But I will say they have some equity because they're 3 games ahead of the next team, the Miami Heat. And I just don't think that even with 5 injuries, they're going to lose that much ground, considering the Heat aren't that reliable to begin with.
Yeah, I would say the Heat have had the chance to take that 6 seed. They've had plenty of opportunities to get out of the play-in, and it's really just the Heat beating themselves up at this point. I will say though, again, to defend why the Warriors are blowing it, like you have Steph who is still out, and you're still out Andrew Wiggins too. So like you're really just relying on Draymond and Klay Thompson here. Klay, I love. Draymond, like I respect, but ultimately, like you got a young up and coming team that Draymond's been talking a lot of shit all around the world on Dylan Brooks in particular. So like they've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I'm loving seeing this response out of this team, but let's start in Memphis, because unless you've been living under a rock, John Morant has been in some hot water recently. After what was the game? Which game was it in Denver? It was Denver because it was the Colorado Police. So after they played in Denver, there was a video that came out, but the story allegedly is actually that Steven Adams calls an all-team meeting and says, like, hey guys, like, we're we have something here, we can do it. Like there's no more partying, it's no more like, doing this, doing that. Like, let's playoffs are around the corner. Let's focus up and let's go. And that night, John Morant just goes on Instagram Live and is like just showing a gun. And it's now turned into this whole possible investigation. The Colorado police, as I mentioned, they're not going to pursue any charges on Ja. There's not enough evidence according to them. But Ja has not been playing for the Memphis Grizzlies recently, which, like, the Lakers were playing them twice recently, so that helped us. Like, those were two key wins for the Lakers, who are now in a play-in spot.
You're a
And now
podcaster. Can you stop saying us?
us. I'm sorry that you have no loyalty, so you don't understand how to make a commitment to a team. I'm sorry you lack loyalty. So, anyways, as I was saying, I want to get into it for a little bit, but there's one thing I want to start with, which is, when Ja entered the league, he was not this like loud, abrasive player. He was very humble. He was just like, let me prove it to you on the court. I thought the way he handled, like, do you remember a couple seasons ago, there was that kid who was at a Memphis Warriors game in Memphis and he was wearing a Steph jersey and Ja made like a sick move, dunked on them, and then like ends up kind of in that like section of the crowd. And then the kid in the Warriors jersey tries to dap Ja up, and Ja's like, no. And then, like, again, he handled it, I think, very respectfully. Like, talked about, like, dude, how are you going to come into our court, wear that jersey, be a kid from this area, and not be rocking us, not be rocking me? So I thought it was really cool the way he handled it in that instance. But this season in particular, this is not the first time Ja's been jawing. This is not the first time that he's sort of found himself just under question, under scrutiny, whatever it may be. And I wonder if, like, is his ego getting a little too big? Is he now just thinking of himself like he's like talking smack publicly, which, like, hey, I respect, I love trash talk. That's a part of the game. But I liked let me just beat you on the basketball court, Ja. Just my initial thoughts right here.
Yeah, and my initial thoughts are the amount of things that we could have judged and seen about players in the 80s and players in the 70s, in the 60s, if it weren't for social media. I just feel like there is the more, and then when you have social media, like what I do on social media versus what Greg Foss would do on social media versus what Michael Saylor would do on social media. And so I could get away with certain things that Greg can't get away with, that Michael Saylor couldn't even get away with. So it's like there's more eyes on Ja, exponentially more eyes on him now than he had when he was a rookie. And at the same time, he is feeling as a young in his early 20s, exponentially more power than he did back at that now than he did 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So what you're seeing is a young guy making stupid decisions, and we all have the cameras to see those decisions being made. That's not to say that I'm making excuses for it. I'm just trying to say that these kind of things are expected, and the NBA does a really interesting job of trying to portray a certain narrative about people, and oftentimes it falls flat on their face. They were proponents of getting rid of the Kyrie deal with Nike. They're proponents of helping usher Kyrie Irving out of the limelight in the same time that you have Ja harassing, minors with firearms. And it's just like, it's almost like
Whoa. He did not allegedly punch the 17-year-old kid. Like,
oh,
we
I'm
gotta
sorry.
get
We're talking about a couple of different situations. So one, he
right.
had,
But
yeah. And so I'm saying this is why you said he's been under scrutiny multiple times. And this is all during the time when the NBA and mainstream media is making concerted effort to say who is the ideal face for the future, and they're literally picking winners. And the problem with that is that it's not really free market. And so we get to see this guy that they picked, and immediately he's messing up. And so I would say, hands off NBA. Let the people decide who are the heroes and who are the superstars. Let the players decide on the floor who are the superstars, and let the people, when they are out and about, decide who should be the role models per se. And it's just kind of funny. But would we be saying the same thing about the player? Bernard King, who had cocaine issues. David Thompson had cocaine issues. Those get kind of forgotten. Charles Barkley with his gambling issues, and Jordan. How much greater would they be if those kind of things were on Twitter? I saw Michael Jordan at the casino last night. So it's just the nature of the beast right now, but all the more reason for them to be even more scrutinous of their own actions. And this is just a lesson learned from him. But time will forgive all when he starts scoring 30 points a game when he gets on the court.
I would say I'm putting my tinfoil hat on, but it's honestly at this point it's just being confirmed by two different former NBA players on that notion of the NBA picking who they want us to see, root for, and sort of become this sort of face of the NBA. And you had Carmelo Anthony come out last week kind of talking about, I went through a similar thing as Ja is about to go through, where, hey, I kept some friends from Baltimore that they would always be hanging out with me. And I remember one time in particular, there was an incident. I got suspended. I got the heavier suspension of all the players. And, I went to meet with David Stern, and I was like, yo, why you guys got to do me like that? And David Stern at the time was like, we see everything. We know everything you're doing. I know how many times you're smoking dope. I know whose company you're keeping. I know all the shit you're doing. And if you keep doing it, these fines, these suspensions are going to keep coming your way. Unless you change the people you surround yourself with, unless you change what you're doing off the court, we're not going to make you the face on the court. So Melo went through a situation like that. Then you also have Gilbert Arenas, who locker room agent zero, dude. Gilbert Arenas was the OG deep three before Steph Curry, just pulling up from near half court with some ridiculous shots and draining them, and then gets in trouble with the gun and the whole, they bring in John Wall, and then Gilbert Arenas' career just sort of fizzles out, and you never really hear of him again.
Fizzles out. He brought the gun to the locker room. It was by next year he was done. It was just it was cut off. It wasn't even a fizzle.
Well, I say fizzle because he was suspended for a year, but then he did make a comeback. He played for two different teams after that, but never really saw the court. So it was on life support, but to your point, it was over. Agent zero, all-star caliber player, no more after that. And his take on a lot of this stuff was yo, Ja, you were a tier one. You were the guy alongside players like Jason Tatum and Giannis that the NBA is sort of, and LeBron, that they're feeding you, the fans, and saying these are the guys you this is where the best players are. These are our best players. Watch them. Make sure you catch their games. And you're no longer that. And you're probably not that for a couple of years. And sort of talking about how that system within the NBA. And then one thing I'll say as someone who also has incredible flow and so much respect for Ja's hair. I fucking love Ja's hair. Gilbert Arenas straight up ended his whole rant talking about how you might never get out of this until you shave your hair now. They may force you to shave your hair. Nice. And I heard that, and then that's why I started, it stuck with me on the 2005 player dress code. And it really, I started looking up some stuff. Jason Richardson talked about how dude, all of these policies, no chains over your clothes, no shorts, no sleeveless shirts. He was oh, this is all what the black community wears. This is what you're targeting black players with this dress code. You can't wear do-rags. Okay, show me a white player in the NBA who's showing up to a game in a do-rag. Seriously, I would love to see that picture. Austin Reeves, I need you to show up to the next game in a do-rag. That would be so fucking badass.
Austin
But
Austin Rivers is white enough.
Austin Rivers is not an NBA player.
You see me throw the alley oop? You see me throw
Let's go.
that?
Let's go. But like, let me ask you this, and then we can move on from this take. So I brought up to you before, like it's like a fucking core memory for me when the NBA dress code policy came out in 2005 in Sports Illustrated. I remember a side by side picture. It would they were walking down a tunnel, I think All Star Weekend, and AI do rag jersey, saggy shorts, and then Shaq wearing like one of his custom suits, doing his whole thing. And then Sports Illustrated is straight up in the caption, like AI, like these things are all against the new dress code policy by the NBA. And then these are the things that like Shaq is doing that like the NBA, like, yeah, like sort of like, hey, Shaq is the example citizen. AI is not. Let me ask you this. 2005. So this is 4 years after AI won MVP, 4 years after they made that final run. It's just before he gets traded to the Nuggets.
Nuggets.
Do you think that AI fell victim to one of these sort of like, we're gonna like shadow ban you, if you will? Like the NBA shadow banned AI from the public image for a good chunk of the 2000s, due in large part because they didn't want that image versus like you have these clean cut players. Like, dude, we were getting fed Shaq well into his 30s, like when he was the second fiddle. Like that should have been like that was like prime AI Kobe, and the NBA was feeding us Kobe, and there was a little bit of that like, oh, who's gonna get the scoring title in the 2004-2005 season? Kobe gets it, and then you almost like never like AI's career does start to slowly taper off. I would say he had like one good year with the Nuggets, and then after that, his whole career just sort of like continued to go down.
You were going for a while, and I'm going to try to cover a few things. But the most important thing is that when you mention they're going to make you cut your hair, uh, they ain't going to make anyone do anything if you do one thing, and that's win. And, quote Al Davis, just win, baby. And the problem is with AI is that he wasn't winning, so it's easy to shadow ban. It's easy to blackball. It's easy to write you out of the script. By social media, the NFL creates their off-season script nowadays. Everyone knows, what is Joe Mixon doing? He had to read that script. I have to do what? But the script is easy to write when you're mediocre, or when you can't say I'm going to make you watch me. Monta Ellis as putting up 24 points a game on a bad team. Sorry, dude. You didn't make anyone watch you. AI, 28 points a game, first round exit every year, one time caught lightning in a jar. Did I say that right?
Lightning in a bottle.
Lightning in a bottle. I always say that wrong. It's because I'm a old millennial.
And I'm a young millennial.
No, I'm not a young millennial, but
I'm literally like there are only 2-3 years after me that can qualify as millennial. Like I'm
what do you
one of the youngest
stop?
millennials.
Okay, I'm sorry I went down that path. I'm a freaking millennial, bro.
I know, but you're like 100 years older than me.
Oh my gosh. Anyways. Yeah. So Ja, if he just starts, which he is right now, if he came back and all of a sudden he just carried just AI carried his team to the finals on his back, which he is perfectly positioned to do. He is one superstar with a bunch of role players. They're going to forget about that. He does it again. Any shoe deal, any Sprite deal, like they're going to say, we want you. We don't care what the NBA says. So in that regards, like, yeah, the middle A-lister, like, yeah, you're going to have to play by the rules. But LeBron, the crazy thing about LeBron is that one, he plays by the rules, and two, he's like the best player in the league for over a decade. That's easy for the NBA. They're like, yes, please, all day, every day. Kobe Bryant the same way. But when you have the AI, when you have the Ja Morant, when you have I can't think of anyone else really, but those are key. Those are key. When you have a Carmelo Anthony who's kind of, yeah, like he keeps those guys around. Those are those guys need to be that winning class in order to overrule the marketing machine. And that's just not going to go away. They are, they aren't big now. The group of superstars are bigger than the league. And that's why I don't think that a dress code will come back because they make too much money and their player union is too strong. But
Well, the
individually,
dress
they
code has been sort of thrown out at this point. Like their
there's
players
yeah.
wear whatever they want.
Yeah, the dress code came around in 2005 and it just slowly tapered off to the point where it's like they're wearing, Russell Westbrook's wearing a skirt now. But then it's
No, but
like,
like straight, like knock him all you want. Like you got to respect Russ because he did break the dress code so many times and sort of challenge the NBA to a point where he was like, "What's wrong with me just expressing myself through my clothes?
yeah,
If I can build a brand behind that, and then that paved the way. Now everyone fucking wears whatever they want.
of course. And I was taking cheap shots, but at the same time, like,
We
the
save the shots on Russ. We got time. We'll take some shots at Russ.
we have to make sure that we players. I'm sorry, not we players. If you win, you're bigger than any marketing plan. If you don't win, you are subject to what they proverbially they say. That's it.
I would say that's valid. Although it's
If AI won a
disappointing.
bunch of games, he could have won whatever he wanted. If he beat the Lakers and came back and won another championship, you can't tell me nothing. They would, yeah, AI, yeah, like tattoos are cool. AI tattoos are cool, whatever you want. Because guess what? If they don't take advantage of the shine, then every consumer is like, well, why am I looking at this guy? Why am I looking at Jason Kidd? He lost. It's like AI, like the consumer may be a sheep, but they're not completely dumb. Like they say, like, okay, if it makes dollars, it makes sense. Yeah, I should be watching him because yeah, he's winning and the NBA is showing it to me. But they're not going to watch this loser and ignore the guy who's winning 60 games a season, MVP and championships. That's why you couldn't ignore Jordan no matter what he did. You couldn't ignore the black players that were coming into the NBA back in the 80s and 70s, no matter how black they were, because they were winning. And that's you say, hey, we're gonna have to market these Negroes because they ain't going away. Could you imagine, Bill Sharman saying, or someone, I don't know who was racist back then, but you get it.
They said it.
Yeah.
They said it.
How are we gonna market these Negroes? Or something else worse?
Like people were afraid of Dr. J being the face of the NBA for the 70s. People
Yeah.
were genuinely concerned about that.
Yeah.
And there was a reason why Magic was not the sole face.
It had to be him and Larry, which is, I guess what, Larry earned it.
The white man eat.
Yeah, and Larry earned it. And of course he had to play in Boston, but he earned it. And it wasn't bad. Like if they forced like Dan Issel, like Magic and Dan Issel, I'm like, okay, Dan Issel scores, but he's not a winner. But it's like that was easy. But if they forced something, it'd be like, come on, man. But like Magic won, and you couldn't take that away from him. Jordan won, you couldn't take that away from him. So the formula is to win and be the face of your winning team, and then you can do whatever you want.
Let's keep it going.
Yep.
Let's talk KD. In one of the most bizarre, sad, kind of disappointing series of events. I'm going to share sort of how it went down in my head. So first, KD literally just in layup lines, warming up for the game last night against OKC, just slips. Now it turns out it's possible grade 2 sprain. He's going to be reevaluated in 3 weeks' time. At first, in my head, I was like, damn, OKC playing dirty, leaving something just like not wiping out on the court. And then it comes to my attention, like, no, this game was in Phoenix. Someone's getting fired. That's all I'm going to say. Like, some poor kid is never going to return to working at the Phoenix Suns home games. Like, I'm sorry. It's just the truth.
You're right.
The Suns still managed to win. They beat OKC. OKC is without Shai, so you gotta. I think there's a little bit of grain of salt there because I'm gonna pull up now sort of what the remaining schedule for the Suns are, but let me shift it to you. Sort of what are your expectations for the Suns for at least the next 3 weeks?
Again, I mean that puts way too much pressure on the missing supporting cast. Unless Aiton has sort of taken a back role for the few games I saw, a backseat role. I wonder if he becomes like sort of a 20 and 10 guy that they need to go and play inside out with him and Booker. But in my opinion, because of Memphis going to almost certainly careen with Ja out, because the Warriors still have to play games on the road, so they will lose those games. Phoenix really isn't going to move. They're 3 games ahead of the Warriors. They're 2 games behind the Grizzlies. Even with KD out, I still trust KD less Suns than I do a Ja less Grizzlies.
Even with old man CP3 running point?
Yeah, because again, they have like CP3 he's still a functional player. He's just not playoff winning. Again, old man CP3 is 37 and 29. That's not to say that he's, old man CP3 world champion. So yeah, can they play at a 50% clip? Can they not lose 3 games in a row and win maybe 55% of their games to maybe pass up the Grizzlies? Yeah, they can. But this just goes to show with all these injuries, there's going to be a lot of parity when it comes down to the West playoff race. And a lot of teams will be fighting for what seems to be, 2 and 3 is up for grabs, and 4 through 8 is really up for grabs. If the Lakers keep playing, and I'm diverging. We're going to talk about them later. But this is just more opportunity for teams at the bottom, the Pelicans or the Lakers, to push teams like the Clippers out entirely out of the playoffs. No one is safe.
So I think, like, for example, you have the Suns who are going to play Sacramento on Saturday, and then again, actually, in about 2 weeks' time. Um, if KD misses 4 weeks, he is missing the rest of the season. So we're not seeing KD until the earliest I would genuinely say is, like, I don't think we see KD for the regular season. I think the Suns, even if you're wrong and the Suns start to track down, I think they would rather err on the side of, hey, we can get KD back by week 3, iffy, or we wait until week 4 and like he's a little bit stronger. Like, we'll take that, and we might even hold him out of the first round of the playoffs potentially, which then that begs the question of, okay, I want to go through this list of teams in the West of Sacramento Kings. Let's say the Suns fall so far that somehow they're playing Sacramento in the first round. Without KD, do you think the Suns could get it done?
No.
Same. What about Golden State?
Steph Curry's healthy? Nope.
And Memphis with drawback?
Nope.
Okay. Then some other teams that, again, could be possible matchups. Clippers. Let's say the Clippers won. I'm gonna change my answer. Minnesota. If the Suns somehow get the 3 seed, Minnesota.
I think they can
stinks
beat
the
Minnesota because I still think
with a healthy
Minnesota
cat. With a healthy cat.
with a healthy no.
Okay, because Cat's coming back.
Yep. So no. That's the thing. Like all these teams are a facade of themselves, and the teams that are losing their players at the wrong time, or not developing their chemistry in the right time, i.e. Clippers. The Timberwolves are a 500 team with Cat. You can't say that they're still a 500 team. They're probably a 53%, 530 team. And you have to expect them to play at a better rate than they are now, barring some chemistry. They know how to play with Cat. Mike Conley is not going to figure out, I don't know how to play with this guy. Of course he does. Him and Gobert, and then Cat is just pushed in. So yeah, Timberwolves are more dangerous later. The Clippers are arguably more dangerous later as they figure out how to deal with Westbrook and their new influx of guards. It's bad to lose a key piece during this late playoff run, or I'm sorry, during this pennant race.
Well, I think it's also to your point, sure. I agree that a player like Mike Conley, he can figure out how to play with View Cat despite being traded during the trade deadline, but not everyone on that team is going to be able to like gel well. The exception though is the fact that all those other players for the most part went through training camp with Cat. So they
Yes.
have that rapport at least baked in to a degree. KD, on the other hand, is a player traded to this team. CP3, I have no doubt you're going to figure out how to get the ball to KD. Booker, you're going to figure out how to play alongside KD. But you know who's not? Some of these role players around you because they did not get those minutes.
Ayton. Yeah. Yes. No, agree. And that's the catch. And the thing is that Ayton, with Durant there, the 1 or 2 games that I watched, Ayton essentially is kind of he's not there. And yeah, I understand you're not big on him, and he is what he is, but he disappears when a force as big as Durant is there. And I feel that Chris Paul can't carry that weight to say, okay, I'm going to become, Chris Paul of old again. He needs that firepower. So yeah, and then the chemistry. There's too many. I don't think Ayton's not going to be able to figure out how to be. Guess what? Ayton may go back to his 18-9, 18-10 self, and then Durant comes back. Then what is that? Well, now what do I do? And that's happened before. That happens before with teams that can't figure out their chemistry, especially with younger players. It's going to be rough for them. So yeah, even with Kevin Durant coming back, you may lose an efficiency in the other players' roles, like you said.
I know one more team, and this one is genuinely one that if this is the first round matchup and Katie's not there, I would just be sad. Dallas.
No, I knew you were going to say that one. We talked about before the show. We didn't really want to talk about the Dallas and.
Well, no, I'm talking about the matchup. Like, if
in the playoffs. No, I'm saying like the catch is like I stayed home from church to watch that game. Like I was like that was my Super Bowl. I really wanted to see them, and I felt like I got exactly what I needed to see. That full strength. Both of those teams would trade blows, and it come down to the wire. But a healthy. Now you were just telling me Luka is kind of like limping, but which is bad. It says MRI clean on Doncic's thigh, so that means he's probably going to not be out for too long. I mean, those guys, they're both veterans in their prime. And when I say veterans, that means mentally veterans. They have figured out how to be efficient with each other. They're not missing any opportunities. Kyrie's getting his 40-point games. Luka's getting his 40, and they're doing it at the same time sometimes. Hardaway's coming in, knocking down threes. That's a dangerous team. So, yeah, they lost in that one game, but they would blow them out of the water without Kevin Durant.
Yeah. I don't think it's even genuinely close. Because you just gave up so much to get KD, and that it's the equivalent of just you have 4 key players injured, and we talked about it at the top of the show, like with a team like Brooklyn, you got 5 key players, and a team that's just deep with key players, like that stings. And so you also have to look at it from that perspective, and it's just tough. I don't doubt that, Booker can go off for a game or 2, but in a 7-game series, I have genuine concerns if this team could even get out of the first round.
It's a 7-game series, but yeah, because of that, the repetition of exposing the weaknesses, and that's why I'm very, very interested to see Chris Paul in it against a team where he cannot hide, and that's the problem with him against the Dallas Mavericks. They can't hide him on anyone. If you look, I forget the young wing's name, roster depth chart. His name is Josh Green. Who does he guard? He can't guard Frank Nicolina. Can't say his name.
Kidia.
He's too tall. Holiday is too tall. Kyrie's too good. Luka's too big. Hardaway's too tall. So these are the kind of things where it's like, okay, we want to hide Chris Paul because he can't guard anyone, but that team is just physically outmatching him. And when you look at the playoff structure, the Phoenix Suns will lose to a team that they can't hide them against. Like for instance, the Clippers, they could probably beat the Clippers not because Russell Westbrook is Russell Westbrook, but because there are a couple of standstill kind of guards that he may be able to just hide on. Doggy's freaking out. But yeah, like Sacramento, he can't hide. He can't hide against them. Forget how to say his name. Huter's too big. Whatchamacallit? Fox is too fast. And so we all, when we talk about, the media pundits are really focused on, hey, the Phoenix Suns, they're situated to win. Well, in order to win, you kind of have to have resiliency. And there's no resiliency at the point guard position. Essentially, I remember in that game, Phoenix versus Dallas, a lot of key minutes, Paul was out in place of the backup point guard. Remind me his name again. I'm missing all kinds of names today. The one who shoots sideways. You know what I'm talking about? You're muted.
Wait, I said a stupid thing. It's not campaign. Yeah, campaign.
Campaign. Yeah.
Yeah.
They played Payne because he's younger, more dynamic, in these key minutes in the middle of the fourth quarter. And those are the kind of things where it's like, okay, well, campaign, he's athletic enough to play NBA ball, but he may not make the decisions that are needed to be successful. So it's just too many holes spouting in the Phoenix.
Wow, this is awkward, but I just lost Ulric. I will caveat everything that he's saying with the fact that, KD could recover quickly. I just don't think he will. We will see what happens. But at the same time, I think ultimately it's just going to come down to health. Like we spent a lot of time sort of breaking a lot of these things down and talking about like, hey, this team, that team, this team, that team. But ultimately, I think that at the core of the whole discussion is it's just going to be like who's healthy at the playoffs. Like those are going to be the teams that are really going to at least get out of the first round. The deeper runs, again, like who stays healthy throughout the playoffs. I think that's really just what this all sort of comes down to at the end.
And there's a lot of players that are, dealing with the load. And that's why I don't fault the load management dynamic, because these guys have been playing so hard during their AAU time frame, during their AAU careers. And it's like now you have this 82 game season and fans are complaining and marketers are complaining. We want to see the stars play every game. This kind of crack the whip dynamic. This is the reason these players are falling apart. And if they don't pace themselves, you're going to have a subpar playoff with a bunch of reserves and everyone's going to be mad. Load management is, in my opinion, is an okay thing. I don't care what the elite pundits say.
You know who never had to load manage?
Jordan.
And
Kobe. Yeah.
Oh, it's not an original take. That's such a load management is such a lazy excuse to not play NBA regular season basketball, which at its core players don't enjoy because they're not like playoff basketball is so much more competitive. Players are actually playing defense. Like if you think players don't play defense in the All-Star game, like just watch the games 5 through 25 in the NBA season, and that is honestly the equivalent of no defense being played. Like the NBA regular season really kicks off during the Christmas Day games. So, I get
essentially
it.
their preseason. It's essentially their preseason because they don't even play during the preseason. They're developing their chemistry in the first 25% of the season.
Right, but you also have truthfully, you have a historic precedent for a lot of things. Most points scored in an NBA season tied to the 82 game season. You have the record for win losses tied to an 82 game season. I hear the players' concerns, and it genuinely, like, I'm in the camp that if the players say we don't want 82 games, we want to play 66, we want to play 60 or whatever, I would prefer that than to see 82 games played where no star player is playing more than 70 games. I think that is absurd. And let me caveat by saying, like, if you genuinely get hurt, that's one thing. But if you're doing like what Pop did for the Spurs big three towards the end of their career, where like Tim Duncan just like wouldn't play against like lesser opponents in away games, where sometimes that would be the only time those fans would get the opportunity to see this player. Sure, I sound like I'm saying like, yo, crack the whip, play for me, dance for me, but at a certain point, this is your job. And I get you've played AAU basketball forever, but at its like, and I think this is why you start to see this complaint and like the wear and tear on players' bodies. Like you've read these reports where it talks about you see more injuries now that are acute in sports because these athletes aren't playing all these different sports when they're younger. They're not moving all the different muscles. They're hyper focused.
Cross training, right?
Pitchers are just throwing to the point where every player,
they're just pitching, right?
yeah, like every player now, every pitcher goes through Tommy John surgery where like a generation or two ago, like that was your career's done. Like you're lucky if you can even use your arm after Tommy John surgery. Now it's like, oh, you got Tommy John in college, like you're good. Like you got another 15 years to throw still. You got NBA
Achilles was
players.
the same thing.
Dude,
Isaiah Thomas tore his Achilles. He was over, but Kevin Durant tore his Achilles. He's playing. He had 2 borderline MVP years if he didn't sprain an ankle. So, I think that I understand, like, you say it's your job, but your job is, and what you're expected to do is negotiable based on what your employer is willing to pay you and what your fans and viewers are willing to watch. And it's like they can complain, but the best complaint, just from an Austrian economics perspective, is a boycott. So if you're saying I don't want to watch a second stringer on the Lakers play, then don't watch and put your money where your mouth is.
But it's like the NBA TV ratings are declining, so there's very clearly a voice from the fans. Which, yes, owners pay the players, but the fans pay the league and pay the owners. So the only reason the players are getting paid by the owners is because of the fans. So at its core, I'm a big proponent of like the old Kobe mantra of, yo, I gotta go out, I gotta go play hard every night because,
and if that affects their pocketbook, but that's the thing, their salary cap's still going up. So if that's affecting their because and their salary cap is going up because their revenue is going up, and now maybe you could say, well, that's just money printing. Go read my article. But if you say that, hey, this is going to affect their pocketbook, all the players say is like that cap is getting bigger and bigger by me doing the same exact thing. There is no retribution for those actions. And that's why I say, hey, if there's no retribution, you conserve your body, you earn your money, you work out your contract to the best of your ability and to the best of your preservation. Because at the end of the day, you're also playing for that next contract. And you can't, if you just go balls out and then break yourself down, teams are going to say, oh yeah, they're kicking the tires. Oh, you don't run like you used to. And so we're not going to give you that max deal. So they're always, everyone's out there for their own individual benefit. And if it hurts their pocketbook, I guarantee you'll see, well, I'll play. When is that salary cap going to go down? Tell me. Tell BlackRock to stop printing money.
I mean, pause, because we both know it's not BlackRock. Like, come on. This is still a Bitcoin podcast.
Who is it?
The BlackRock is technically not a bank.
BlackRock owns the Fed.
But it's an asset management firm. Sure, you can say that Larry Fink has donated enough money to have influence with the Fed policy decision, is tied up in the WEF and the IMF well enough.
Okay.
But at its core,
should I take it off? Should I take it off? Tinfoil hat off. I'm done.
Okay, good. I'm gonna skip the free agent part, and I want to bring up this one statistic to help segue us. But on the point of Kevin Durant, he post Achilles, like, could have won MVP had he not gotten hurt. here we are again. KD out for possibly a month plus. Since 2019, KD has played 132 NBA games. Kawhi Leonard, since 2019, right after winning the championship with Toronto, has played 148 games. Anthony Davis, since 2019, the season right before the Lakers won the championship, 179 games. So my question to you is this. Why is AD the injury prone one when in fact KD and Kawhi have played less games in the same window of time? You're muted.
Good call. Thanks. I don't know how other local stations treat their players, and I do know that when you're living in LA, you get the most intimate opinions of all the players that play locally. So you get all the judgment on Paul George. For all I know, someone in Cleveland may not even care about what Paul George is doing. But here it's like, oh, he's a third option. What is he doing? Blah, blah, blah. So in my opinion, I think that Anthony Davis is generally seen as a very good player who plays a limited amount of games. I think that Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant has had catastrophic injuries that have kept him out. Like, I think the Achilles. Neither of those guys. I mean, Kawhi Leonard had that. Yeah, I guess so. I think Kawhi gets his reputation from the Spurs, from the load management, and so anything that seems like that.
Bro, I threw numbers at you. I'm not talking like takes, just numbers. Since 2019,
You're saying why does he get that?
Yeah, Kawhi has played less games than AD. KD has played less games than both of them. But you're literally defending and saying like, oh, but KD's had catastrophic injuries. Sure. AD still has played more games though. So why are we not labeling KD as injury prone at this point in his career?
Because we're oversensitive to LA players. That's what I think. I think we hear the LA crowd. I don't think everyone across the world is saying Anthony Davis is way more injury prone than Kawhi Leonard.
You're not even a fucking Lakers fan. You're not in those circles.
I literally can't turn on the radio station without hearing.
What, dude, it's 2023. Who listens to the radio, bro?
You got me. You're really trying to put me in a corner. You're so saucy. You're so saucy today.
Look, I will just say, as a Lakers fan, as the only Lakers fan on this show, when I watch Lakers games and I see AD go to the ground, like my heart stops. Like I audibly yell out, "No!" whenever AD goes to ground. It doesn't matter. Like he could literally get up right in the next play. Like it could have just been like I drew a charge for all I can. I'm still gonna like squirm and freak out and just think, oh my God, it's over. Like AD's out and we're not gonna the run for a championship is over. So
don't you scream when LeBron goes down?
No, LeBron's a tank.
Every time LeBron has gone down, I have thought like, oh, I wonder how he's taking that. He's slow getting up. And of course, last one, it was a nightmare because he's slow getting up and he's out for 3 weeks. I saw Kyrie go
non-contact injury. He played the whole game still.
And this is what the non-contact injury played the whole game, and now he's out for 3 weeks.
I get, but he didn't fall down, is my point. And every time he's fallen this season, he's not.
He did.
Not hurt.
Look, you forgot. Look at it again. He was rolling. He's like, my foot. He was holding up in the air, saying my foot. I was like, oh, he probably had some like plantar issue. But the thing is, Kyrie fell on a contact injury, and you could hear the gasp in the stadium. So I think, look, people are hypersensitive about their stars when they fall. That's why stars don't take charges. That's why stars don't do any of the hustle plays. When they do, it's a bonus. So I don't think, you've seen Anthony Davis fall enough to get used to it and for it to be more than a nightmare. When Anthony Davis is playing, he's dominant, and all you can do is hope that he doesn't have any kind of weird little falls, because it's going to happen. You just maximize him when he's available. And right now, the Lakers are maximizing him. Am I not right? Now who's a fan?
Let's talk the Lakers because as the only Lakers fan on this show,
That
my
doesn't hurt me.
Lakers.
It doesn't
I know
hurt
it doesn't hurt you because you're not a Lakers fan. Like it doesn't hurt you because it's true. The Lakers find themselves in ninth place, tied with the Pelicans in 10th. The Lakers have the tiebreaker there based on head-to-head matchup. The current playoff standings. I'm just gonna share my screen really quickly so we can dive into it.
Did you just say the Pelicans have the tie or the Lakers have the tie?
Lakers have the tie.
Yeah.
Lakers have the tiebreaker. They're the 9 seed. So we are moving on up. The Clippers find themselves a half game out of the play-in. You know, the Mavs, Timberwolves, Clippers sort of duking it out there. Golden State, Phoenix just above them. And then you've got sort of Sacramento, Memphis, Sacramento moving up. They will be playing Phoenix. Sacramento will be soon. Actually, I think Sacramento plays the Knicks tonight. So that'll be a good game. That's actually, I think, Sacramento's first nationally televised game of the season. But then just to highlight, no real significant changes in the East. I will just point out the Bulls are now one game out of the play-in. I know we've talked about the fact that, hey, Lonzo is actually, I don't think we mentioned it. Lonzo is at this point like for sure done for the year. He's possibly going to have surgery again. It's really, really unlucky.
Third surgery, yeah.
Really, really unfortunate, man, because you just hate to see a player not get the opportunity. But you're one game out. Like that's just you go on a little bit of a win streak. One of these teams that's in that play-in spot, like just goes cold for a couple of games, and then you flip into it. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. But let's focus our energies on the West. So Lakers play in. This is dope. You have those AD stats. You want to run through them?
Yeah, I mean, AD, I'm just going to ballpark it and I'm not going to share it, but generally speaking, he's averaging 34 points a game. He's averaging 15 rebounds a game. He's averaging 4 blocks a game, shooting 58% from the field. This is what we were talking about 2 weeks ago. LeBron gets hurt a week and a half ago. If LeBron gets hurt, what does AD do? Well, we see that AD is actually coming to play. He has a rhythm. And this is not just LeBron hurt. This is D'Angelo Russell is hurt. So we had a time when the Lakers, they had all these new players, and then all of a sudden they were all gone. When AD comes back, LeBron and D Russ are gone, and yet they're still winning. They're 7-3 in the last 10 games. And mind you, it could be about the teams that they're playing against. I will say that there is an incentive. The incentives will come out in this run up to the playoffs. You see Portland, the Utah Jazz were in the top 10, and what's their incentive right now? Like I keep saying, to test their young players. Lakers' incentive is to win a championship, and although that's laughable, I believe you talked about a certain stat pre-show about defensive rating. Where are they ranked in that?
So since the NBA trade deadline, the LA Lakers are number 1 in defensive rating. To your point, like we went as far back as when the Warriors won their very first championship, and I think there was only one team outside of the top 10 in defensive rating, and like a good majority of them are in like the top 5 very consistently, with a lot of them either being the 1 or 2 spot. And look, we've seen these type of midseason trades. Look, I'll tip my hat. Detroit Pistons 2004, like Rasheed Wallace, that was a midseason acquisition for that team. That put them over the edge. They want it. I'll take it back to LA.
Do you need any sort of emotional support for bringing that moment up?
I thought it was very mature of me, to be honest with you. Like I think it shows how much I've grown as a person, that I can just calmly say "fuck the Pistons," but at the same time, my hat goes off. Like great in-season trade. Like I'm an aspiring general manager. Any NBA team that wants to hire me, please feel free.
Even the Pistons.
Dude, hire me. Trust trust. Give me 3 years. That's all I want. Just 3 years. We're gonna make some noise.
That's all you'll get.
That's all I
That's all
need,
most
bro.
people get.
That's all I need. Just give me 3 years, and we are. I'm talking like we'll make a run in the playoffs, and then all of a sudden it's like we're a contender. Like any NBA team, I have a 3 year plan for you. Just slide in my DMs. Slide into my DMs. I know all the owners are watching this, so but I digress because like this is awesome to see the Lakers are clicking on the defensive end. The year they won the championship, they were what they were the number 3 rated defensive rated team in the NBA. Look, I love seeing AD ball out, but I don't think it's fair to say like it's AD carrying this team. It's Austin Reeves playing like an absolute monster. It's I'll eat my
Vanderbilt.
words. Dennis Schroeder, like showing up to play floor general.
Might as
It's
well.
Vanderbilt, like locking guys down, not just playing defense. Like Vanderbilt is a lockdown defender.
Coach Ham gave the credit to Vanderbilt for that win over the Mavericks when they came back because of his presence on Luka as they came back from a record 26 down.
27.
The
Put
best.
some respect on that name.
Yeah. So I think that the Lakers, again, we see other teams faltering. Again, Phoenix hasn't faltered yet because KD hasn't lost yet. That's just projection. But you see Memphis faltering. You see Clippers faltering with their new roster. You see the Lakers losing their roster and yet still holding firm. So it's like, imagine what happens when the GOAT, I'm not going to troll too much, when LeBron comes back. Don't shut me off. Okay.
Finish your take, otherwise I'm going to take the mic. Finish your take.
That's what
Don't
happens
fumble.
when he comes back. Lakers, I could see them being easily a 6 seed.
So I'm kind of falling in love with this Lakers team right now, and I know it's the wrong thing to do, but to your point, I will say my surprise pick right now is that the Lakers actually I think will not be a play-in team. I think they will get the 6th seed.
We'll see.
And I would really like it to be like I'm a lazy motherfucker like this. I would really like to get a KD-less Suns in the first
or a
round.
Memphis-less Ja and Memphis-less
Ja will be
I'm
back.
sorry, Ja-less Memphis.
Ja will be back. Like this will blow over. There'll be another story
Yeah.
in the news cycle. Like freaking Sean Kemp is taking the attention away from Ja. So like I genuinely like I think Ja is back by next week. Like I don't think this is a very long suspension. Whether he's gonna get more primetime games, whether he'll get as many superstar calls, that's a whole other thing. But
just win, baby.
Yeah, I guess. Look, I think it's also to your point worth pointing out, you don't have D'Angelo Russell. And I think that is where I'm more interested in seeing how does this team either improve or could it be that at least for regular season basketball, Schroeder, you have not proven me in the playoffs. You have literally like consistently been bad in the playoffs for every team you've ever played playoff basketball for. Like very consistently, all the way down to when you were at OKC and everyone was like, "Oh, you're actually dope." Go look at those numbers. It wasn't that dope. It wasn't that dope. You only played against second unit players in the playoffs. So I will say it'll be like there's a part of me that is concerned because the same concern I had with KD, hey, you were just traded. You didn't have a lot of time. You didn't get into a rhythm with these players. And sure, the top players, they will figure it out. But like the rest of the guys might not get into that groove, might not get into that rhythm with you. D'Angelo, you're the point guard. It's not just like you're the catch and shoot guy. You're not like the lockdown 3-and-D like Vanderbilt. Like, no, you are meant to be the point guard. You're meant to be the floor general. And if you don't know where Austin Reeves likes to catch the ball so he is more comfortable pulling up for a 3, if you don't know how high AD needs to catch the ball for him to successfully use his height and length, or if you don't know the way LeBron likes to receive the pass on the alley-oop, like that is what concerns me about this Lakers team, genuinely. But I'm hopeful that D'Angelo comes back very soon so that he can start to get that groove and start to get that rhythm going. And I have faith that LeBron quite frankly, my expectation, not faith, my expectation is that LeBron will actually play point guard, even if D'Angelo Russell is back. I just think that if the Lakers have a shot in the playoffs, and if they have a shot, I mean, if they're all healthy, LeBron's not going to let D'Angelo Russell be the one to play point and possibly like blow this all up. He already gave Russ a chance and it blew up in his face, and he's not going to do it again right now.
If LeBron is going to lose, he's going to lose with the ball in his hands, and you can't think of any other way for one of the greatest players of all time to lose a game. You see how I scaled that back a little bit. Again, all these teams are learning to play with new players. Whether it's Memphis learning to play without Ja, Phoenix with injuries, Golden State with their cycle of injuries. Only the Kings and the Nuggets have had relative stability, and that's why they are essentially the teams to beat in the West. And it just, it just remains to see if any of these teams building up to attack them can get hot at the right time to actually overthrow them. I think that several teams, even the Clippers, have the skill to beat them, but it's a matter of chemistry and consistency at the end of the day when you get to those final four teams.
Do you think that the Kings, who are, in my opinion, they're still getting slept on? They are the number 2 team in the West, and they're still slept on. Like, be honest. Like, do you think every team in the West is healthy? Do you really think the Kings are getting out, going to play in the Western Conference Finals?
That means
you could possibly see the Kings playing against a healthy Suns team, a healthy Memphis team, a healthy Mavericks team, a healthy Warrior. Like, there's any possibility here that they could.
You asked, is it possible? And I say yes. Is it guaranteed? No, because all of these teams have improved their positioning to be better experience, better shooting, better defense, whatever. They have improved, almost all of them. So the catch is that whether coming back from injuries or making trades. So the catch is, do they have a shot at winning any of these series? Yes. Do the Lakers have a shot at winning any of these series? Yes. So I don't want to say the Kings are the Kings. I'm going to say this is a playoff team, and we're going to the playoffs.
That's what it take. The number 2 team in the West is a playoff team in March.
The parity has never been tighter. This is like the NFL from 3-4 years ago. It's a nice thing to watch, where every team is just fighting to play the Patriots essentially. But you never know what team is going to be there. And sometimes the Patriots get upset and then you have someone else. It's a good thing. And it comes from what you said, a bunch of players that can make a shot, aka they have superstars all up and down the rosters, or all up and down the conferences. And it's just a matter of being healthy, having chemistry, and making your outside shots, which is why the Clippers are probably losing in the first round if they have Westbrook playing.
We're a little over the hour, but I would be remiss to, of course, not discuss the worst team in the West. The LA Clippers. They, got themselves out of the play-in. They're half game up in that 6th seed, but I'm talking the Lakers are two games back with, I'm going to do the quick math in my head, 16 games left in the regular season.
They literally beat Toronto, who doesn't care about winning, and Memphis without Ja Morant. And then they lost 6 or 5 games before that. Those are fool's gold games. I think they're going to lose against the Knicks. So they're going down, and they're going down. And so we spend time beating up on them. It's okay. That's what they get for hiring. Westbrook should have gone to the Bulls. He was lazy to stay in LA, and now they're going to get punished for it.
I mean, Westbrook's from LA. Like, he's from Lawndale, not too far from me.
Lazy. He should have gone to the Bulls because we knew that Lonzo, even if Lonzo came back, he would have been half He would have been a part-time player, and Russ could have come in and said, "Hey, because of me, now we're in the playoffs. You can put that on my resume, pay me next year." Now all it's like, well, ever since the Clippers picked you up, they went 400, they went 4 out of 10 for the last 30 games. What do you say about that? That's a bad decision. You could be blamed for a team's failures rather than they would have failed anyways, whether you're on the team or not with the Bulls.
Do we have it confirmed that the Bulls wanted him?
All I remember was that all the insiders were reporting that it is favored that he would be uh, going to the Bulls. So again, favored, and they also said Heat and Clippers are in contention. So I think it boiled down to Paul George getting on the phone, talking to him, talking to the team, and playing general manager. And I think it's going to end up being their big mistake. If they're already bringing in Highland and Gordon, what do you need Westbrook for? It's just a dumb move.
I think you may have to issue an apology on that take, because if the Bulls do sneak into this playoff spot, again, one game behind the uh, Wizards, and they are a game and a half behind the Raptors. Like, literally, you are talking one very small win streak and one very small cold streak, and the Bulls take one of those spots. So,
Agreed.
like, there is, like, if the Bulls move up into the play-in, even if it's just the 10 seed, after only signing Pat Bev and not going after Russ, and then the Clippers fall down to the play-in because they signed Russ, I would argue that the Bulls actually made the best move for their team.
Totally agree. And so what I'm saying is that Westbrook going over there, and if they just happen to catch heat and win, whether it's because of him or not, he gets
Oh, I
to
see what you're
take
saying.
credit. So it's like he gets to say, hey, he could say, hey, I'm Derek Fisher. I won 5 championships. Well, Kobe and Shaq won those championships, but I was on the team. So he gets to be on the team during a highlight, whereas he's only on the Clippers during a, oh my gosh, they blew that. That's the narrative conversation. So that's where his agent will be selling his intrinsic value, his intangible value, and all you see is a negative plus minus. That's bad. So again, but guess what? Hanging out with the old homies and staying in LA, staying in the same house. I understand he's 34. He probably doesn't want to be as mobile as he used to be. But if the Chicago Bulls thing, if he rides that wave to get to the 8th seed, because yeah, remember they have Levine and DeRozan and Vucevic. That's a nasty little team. They have him as that second string pop. It's like, oh yeah, like we're winning because of Westbrook because we lost. That's the easy narrative that the experts will pick up on easy. That's all I'm saying.
I could buy that. Like, just having worked at agencies and knowing sort of how to spin for your players, like that is the easy sort of low hanging fruit. Um, I just I won't I will say it like this, because as someone who like we're hometown kids, man. Like, we both live in our hometowns. I'm at that point in my life where, I'm having conversations of, should we leave? Should we stay here? And it's genuinely like, my family's here. All the friends I grew up with are here. Like, why? Like, if I have the opportunity to stay here, I will never knock someone for saying, like, yo, I want my kids to be close to their grandparents. Like, I want to be in my community around my family. Like, I don't think it's a fair criticism to say Russell Westbrook was lazy to stay with the Clippers. I think it's fair to say, like, yo, you're a bum. You're a garbage player after winning an MVP and being considered like one of the greatest. Kobe literally looked at you as like, yo, this is the closest thing to like what I was like at his age, like just fearless, ferocious competitor. Like, you lost all of that. That I will hold against Russell Westbrook until he retires or gets it back. I'm open to having Russell Westbrook sign with the team next year and come out guns fucking blazing as probably the third option. He's got to lock down being the third option. But I'm talking like, if you can be like, put Rondo style numbers up where you are just dishing 20 assists and you're dishing or you're grabbing like 12 boards as a guard consistently, and then maybe you're getting 10 points a game, maybe 15 points a game. Like every team in the NBA is better because of a player like that. And if you, Russell Westbrook, can recognize that and commit to being that, like I'll fucking eat my words and I will defend you until I fucking die. But I don't think you're going to become that, quite frankly. But prove me wrong.
I think that the what you said early, where he wants to chill out on the traveling circus, and maybe he's comfortable in LA for at least a season, and this is the easy route for him to continue playing and have a chance to win. I don't fault him for that because he's made his money, and that's what you play for. You play to have options. You go out there to have options. He's made his way so that he has his options. And if he wants to walk away from it right now, he'd still retire as one of the greatest players of all time. And at the end of the season, if it doesn't work out for the Clippers, there will always be a borderline playoff team that says, "Hey, we need a guy who can just bring a triple double every game," and he can, even if that triple double means 11, 10 and 10.
But that's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing. Totally agree.
Like genuinely, if you told me I had to pick a player who would get me 25, 8 assists, and 6 boards, or I can get a player who gives me 12 points, 12 assists, and 10 boards, I take the player with 12 and 12 because that at minimum is 36 points versus, actually, no, my math is bad. The other side of that coin is 41 points, but I still stand by. I'd rather have the 12, 12, 10 guy.
I agree.
Let's talk the Cavs because Dex is chomping at the bits for some Cavs takes.
Now I wanted to talk about the Cavs earlier, and I'm happy he brought that up because we were about to stop. But in terms of the Cavs, just like the Lakers are top number one team in defensive rating since the All-Star break, the Cavs are the top 5 team in defensive rating since the beginning of the season, and
they're number one.
They're number one, and I think they're top 5 in offensive rating too, or no?
Let me find it.
Because I've been hearing their defensive rating since the beginning of the season. I'm like, that's a green flag for
Cleveland is number 4 offensive. And sorry, wrong season. Hang on, sorry. They are number 1 in defensive, and they are number 9 offensive for this season right now.
That's a good balance. Season. That's a good balance. We were talking pre-show that the Warriors had a similar thing. Maybe it was number 1 offensive and number 9 defensive, but they are with the big trees and with 2 dynamic guards, and with 2 guards coming off the bench that can hold their own. They're situated to, like I've been saying, to beat either Boston or Milwaukee. I'm not saying that they will. Milwaukee is the team to beat, and Boston is definitely a beta favorite, but that's not saying that they're guaranteed. And my buddy will say like, "Oh, it's Milwaukee or bust." But yeah, I think in a 7-game series, they're beating the Sixers. Not to say that they'll face them, but I think they have a fighting chance at both the Bucks and the Celtics. So yeah, Cavs. I wanted them to make it through the play-ins last year. I was sad that they didn't. But you saw Lauri Markkanen, who was on their team last year. Imagine if he was still there. Oh my gosh. But I guess they wouldn't have Mitchell then.
Yeah, no, that was the Mitchell trade.
Right.
So I think everyone in Cleveland is happy.
They're happy. They
got rid of him. Look, Cleveland is playing much better, I think, than a lot of people expected. Would you say they're kind of like the East's version of the Kings, with the exception like they had a good year last year already, so like now it's like, oh, they're not like a flash in the pan. Like I would argue the Knicks are kind of that flash in the pan. Like they were dope 2 years ago, then they sucked last year, and then now this year it's like, okay, they might be good again. The Hawks flash in the pan, like Trae Young goes to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then now it's like they're a bubble play-in team kind of.
the Hawks were the flash in the pan. I think that both the Knicks and the Cavs are a growing team, especially with Brunson being added, RJ Barrett catching what I think is his rhythm and his appropriate position as sort of a point forward. But the Kings, I forget. I don't think that. I mean, they have had their core basically Fox, Barnes, and Sabonis for the last few years, and then they added Herter. So I just think that the Kings are a growing team that aren't. They may not necessarily be a 2 seed next year, but they're not going to go. Oh, now they're out of the playoffs. They're probably going to be a 5 seed going forward as long as they keep that core together, because they're only going to get better and they're all young. When it comes down to the Cavs, the same thing. They're all under 23 years old. There's nothing but, it's a matter of, do they want to pay, the Cavs want to pay a luxury tax when they all start demanding more money.
No, Dan Gilbert's a cheap asshole.
So they're going
Dan Gilbert's not going to go into the luxury tax unless Donovan Mitchell takes them at least to the Eastern Conference Finals, which then that I want to ask two questions before we wrap up here. So which backcourt would you rather have? Dallas with Kyrie and Luka, or Cleveland with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell?
Easy answer. Dallas.
Is it really that easy?
That's easy for me. So they have.
I don't think it's easy.
Kyrie is 6'3", 6'2", 6'3". Luka's 6'7".
I love Kyrie, and I think Luka out of those four is the best player. So for those reasons, I also go Dallas. But in a scenario where, like, let's play the same game we played with the Suns with Cleveland. All right, possible first round matchup could be either the Knicks or the Nets. I think they absolutely wipe the floor with either of those teams. And if somehow the Heat get hot, I think that unless Kyle Lowry somehow went through a time machine or got to the freaking fountain of youth and is somehow playing the way he was 5-6 years ago, I don't think even the Miami Heat are beating the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round, if that was sort of how the playoff seeding goes. Would you agree?
You're saying if Kyrie hit the fountain?
No, Cleveland.
I'm sorry.
You're saying Kyle Lowry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. No, Cleveland is situated, in my opinion, to win. I don't care. Cleveland's beating Miami Heat 5 times out of 5. I think
the possible first round matchups, in my opinion, for them are the Miami Heat, the Brooklyn Nets, or the New York Knicks. I think the Sixers, Celtics, Bucks they might jockey around 1, 2, and 3, but I think the Cavs are sort of locked in at 4.
Yeah, I think
really
so. I don't think that there's any upsets in the East. I think as they are situated, I think every home advantage team is essentially going to win.
So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 will go on to the next round.
100%.
Okay, so then let's play in the next round. Do you think the Cavs could upset any of the Bucks, Celtics, 76ers? Which ones and why?
The easiest is the Sixers. I think that that Embiid is used to being a mismatch for slower big men, and so he gets to handle the ball on the outside. When you take in the Mobley and what's the other guy's name? Afro, forget his name.
Jared Allen.
Allen and Mobley are just these dynamic rim defenders and perimeter defenders, and that's why I liked what Mark Cannon was with them last year. You had 3 guys that could 7-footers that could defend on the perimeter. Embiid's a perimeter player. He's a stretch 5, so they take away his ability to just shoot easy threes on centers who don't want to step out and over smaller guys who have to defend him on the wing. And then when you talk about Harden, who won't be able to stick with the 2 dynamic guards, you have that mismatch there. And then you have the Maxey versus either of the guards, and they just outmatch him with Mitchell or Garland, whoever has to face him. And he's a good player. So I just think that player for player, Embiid is probably pound for pound better than both of those centers, but to have to deal with them night in and night out, it's not going to be a an easy mismatch for him like he's facing everyone else. I think that the Bucks are just a freak team. I think they're the most stacked team. They have everything from size to shooting to just reliable scoring and Giannis. They will be the hardest team to beat. And because they're the 4th seed, I can see the Cavs losing to them. But again, the Cavs are no pushover. So, if they catch them on a bad night, Giannis is missing a bunch of free throws. Middleton is weak because he's recovering bad from his injury. Then you can see the Cavs steal a series. The same thing goes with the Celtics. Just from even though they made to the finals last year, they're still young, slightly older than the Cavs. So I wouldn't put it past the Cavs to say, hey, you guys ain't that much better than us. You guys just were able to get, you guys are just 1 year ahead of us. So I think it's the Cavs' year potentially to win now, but it's not over if they don't win. So them making it to the conference semifinals, it's not a failure. It's just them getting one step closer. And Q, are you there? Or did I lose you? Future Defensive Player of the Year, Mobley. I can see that. Q, let's see if Q's around. Otherwise, I'm going to shut it down. Don't want to hold you guys off too long. So with Q maybe having technical difficulties, there you are. Q, I have a game to go to soon. You good to go? Uh-oh. All right, guys. So next week we'll be talking. We're gonna have some more playoff, some more late season talks, some more playoff projections. Thank you guys for watching and talking trash on our small podcast. Tony, don't be an ass. Just support me, just like you shilled me in the Telegram. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you for hanging out.